recognized.
2 weeks ago, the Senate unanimously passed a bill requiring the Director of National Intelligence to declassify information about the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the origins of COVID-19. Last week, this was Senator Hawley's bill, passed the House by a vote of 419 to 0, and also passed our Senate unanimously. That kind of support is usually reserved for naming post offices and honoring sports teams. This is remarkable. Unanimously, we've agreed that we should declassify this information and have a real investigation. But in this case, the subject is very serious, and it shows a broad bipartisan appetite in Congress to uncover the truth about the origins of the COVID pandemic. Well, the bill will do some good if the president signs it. It is only the beginning of the transparency that is truly needed. There are thousands of relevant documents in possession of nearly a dozen other agencies that we know of that need to be made public. We are getting nothing but resistance here. NIH, HHS, USAID, state, DHS, energy, FBI, and several DoD components all have relevant information about the origins of COVID. We learned last week the DOE and the FBI have changed their opinion on this. We only learned this because that information itself was classified by a leak in the media. But sitting here today, none of us can say that the documents reveal or how important they are because these agencies are still refusing to give them. So even if we do get the declassification that Senator Hawley has asked for, which is good, they can still refuse to give us. They're refusing to give us unclassified documents as we speak. It is unacceptable that most of what we know about the origins of the pandemic has been exposed either through illegal leaks or whistleblowers or FOIA legislation, litigation, freedom of information. Despite 2 years and dozens of letters from members of this committee, including 5 members at a time, which the law says if 5 members sign something, the government shall produce this information, they still don't produce the information when 5 of us sign. The problem has been there's been very little help. I know Senator Ossoff has been helpful in trying to make this bipartisan, but very little help from the other side in trying to get this information. The agencies continue to obstruct congressional requests for information on this issue. This should not be a partisan issue. I see no reason why this should be partisan. In fact, on Monday, President Biden's Associate Attorney General publicly spoke about how access to government records fosters trust, that, and I quote, "Those who are charged with faithfully executing the laws are in fact doing their jobs with integrity and in the public's interest." We should get these records. I've spent the last several months asking my Democrat colleagues, including the chairman, to join me in requesting information from federal agencies on the origins of the pandemic. I'm still waiting. Months and months go by. 4 Democrat chairmen have been asked for help in getting records, and not one have signed on. Were the roles reversed, I've told all of these Democrat colleagues that I would sign anything they asked me to sign that asked for information from government. How can we do oversight from government if we're unwilling to have them obey the law? The law says that if 5 of us sign something, they're supposed to reveal it, and they're not doing it. I started asking in mid-2021 for this committee and the Help Committee to hold a hearing on gain-of-function research. I got nothing but resistance. Neither committee has held one hearing. 1 million Americans died. We haven't had a hearing on COVID or the origins of COVID or the dangers of gain-of-function research. I was finally allowed to hold one in our subcommittee, and the testimony painted a troubling picture of the dangers of this risky type of research. I hope the chairman and others here today will join me in requesting additional information. It doesn't just have to be a Democrat chair. It could be any Democrat who is interested could sign these letters. The American people deserve transparency and accountability from their government, and I hope my colleagues agree.
Thank you, Ranking Member Paul. We have received those letters that you provided to us at the beginning of the year with your new position. We've reviewed it. We've asked for some additional information, which I think your staff provided to us last week, and we'll get back to you. I am committed to getting information. We need to have transparency. I'm with you. Did you wish to be recognized?
Yes, could I please, Mr.
Senator Hawley, I'm sorry I did not see you.
That's all right. No, I just put my hand up just now. Before we vote on this nomination, I just want to express my deep reservations with this nominee and explain why I will be voting no, and appeal to my colleagues across the aisle to join me in trying to get relevant documents from this nominee from the Congressional Research Service. This is a nominee who was before the committee last September, I believe it was. We have a pattern from this nominee of stonewalling this committee, misleading this committee, and now she's doing the same with, frankly, very disturbing whistleblower accusations that came to us at the end of last week. I'm sorry, I think it's been almost 2 weeks ago now. Let me just refresh here the record. In September of last year, when the nominee first came before the committee, Senator Portman asked her a series of questions about her statements made on Twitter. Senator Portman's staff had found these statements themselves. She had locked her Twitter account at some point when she was in the nomination process. They found her Twitter statements, which were highly partisan, I think highly inappropriate. She refused to answer Senator Portman's statements at the time, questions at the time. So I introduced a question for the record asking her to please give to us any Twitter statements she had ever made that had been available to the public. She refused, and she then said, do we have that board, guys? She then said the following in response to my question for the record. She said, my personal Twitter account is comprised of posts about my mystery novels, of which she's written several, events at the White House Historical Association, Pittsburgh sports teams, travels, and my dog. It was made private months ago before I was nominated as archivist. Now, we know from the Twitter post that Senator Portman found this is simply not true. It is not true that her posts are composed of comments about her mystery novels and so on and so forth. We know that they are composed of highly partisan statements. When I asked her about this, I gave her a chance to correct this testimony. She said she stood by it. I then asked her, I went post by post, where she criticizes former President Trump, where she criticizes members of the United States Senate, where she expresses highly partisan views, where she suggests that religious groups should not be able to put up religious symbols on federal property, which is, by the way, not in accordance with the Supreme Court case law. And in all of these, she then refused to answer my questions. Now, listen, she's entitled to have her views. She can say whatever she wants, and she can say whatever she wants on Twitter. But what she cannot do is lie to this committee. And to say to this committee that her post consisted of this, when we know from Senator Portman's research that's not true, is simply false. That's point number one. Thank you, Vijay. Point number two is after that testimony, a whistleblower, former employee of Dr. Shogan, came forward to my office. We have a normal whistleblower procedure. I'm sure you all do. We followed that procedure. I think she came to us on a Friday. We sat down with her as quickly as we could, following our usual procedure. I then called the chairman about this, said we're going to refer her allegations, I'm saying her because she's allowed her identity to be used, to the committee, which we did. The committee staff had an opportunity to meet with her. I understand they did again yesterday. And I'll just tell you, and I know you all are aware of this because I've sent you all my letter that references the allegations that were made. The whistleblower said that when Dr. Shogan was at CRS, she engaged in partisan conduct and abusive behavior, allegedly, that she allegedly made unsolicited statements of support for political candidates in the workplace, that she also attempted to organize signing events for her book on federal property during work hours for commercial gain. That's the book that features the killing of a Senator Langsford, yeah. Senator Langsford seems to be doing well, though, I'm happy to say. The whistleblower further alleges that Dr. Shogan engaged in a pattern of abuse, retaliation, and persecution, including undermining the whistleblower's promotion, and that Dr. Shogan failed to discipline subordinates who made racially derogatory remarks to the whistleblower. The whistleblower is a woman of color. Now, when the staff, as I understand, asked Dr. Shogan about this, she repeatedly said she couldn't recall, she didn't have documents, and she referred staff to CRS and said you should contact CRS to ask for promotion documents, to ask for documents about her workplace event with her book. So last night, I sent a letter to CRS asking for the relevant documents. And all I would say, drawing to a close now, Mr. Chairman, what I would say is I would humbly suggest and request that we postpone a final vote on this nominee until we get these documents that Dr. Shogan referenced but said she didn't have, she couldn't get us, and repeatedly referred us to CRS. So I've asked for them from CRS. I think we should get them and look at them and do our due diligence on these whistleblower allegations. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.